I'd like to tell you, I'd like to begin by just giving you a little bit of my history. I originally hail from Minnesota, and my first job in emergency services was in Missoula, Montana. I enrolled at the College of Forestry in Montana because I was really into wilderness camping as a high schooler. And I thought, well, forestry, that sounds like being a professional camper. And I soon learned that's not true. You have to take math and all the hard science classes. And so I quickly became enamored with emergency services. I worked a few years for the city of Missoula Fire Department, and I was on an air ambulance, not as a patient, but as a worker. Um, and I got stranded in Seattle. We went down to UNLV with some eyeballs because they did organ transplants. And we got rerouted to Lake Shasta to pick up a burned veteran to take him to Harborview Medical Center. I was a young guy without a lot of commitments, and I found myself with a loaner car from Boeing Field, a nurse, and 12 hours that the pilot couldn't fly. So I watched Ladder Company 1 back into its stall in Pioneer Square. I saw the Fireboat Chief Seattle bobbing on Elliott Bay at the foot of Madison Street. And I thought, this is pretty cool. I want to be part of this. So I transferred to Seattle and I worked there 30 years. I left there after my 30-year career and came to Bellevue, and it's just been an amazing move. I like to talk about the Bellevue benefit. What does that mean? Professionally managed city, departments that work together to support each other, and a tangible support from the community. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I managed to land one of the top fire chief's jobs in the United States. And again, I'm so pleased to be here with you in person today as we begin to gather. Let's see if I can get lucky and advance the slide. Looks like I have a helper back there. There we go. Barbara, thank you for stealing most of the content of my first slide. That's going to make it easier for me. I'll just mention that we do have a staff of 249, of whom 207 are uniformed. Our budget of $53.1 million annually comes from three sources: the general fund, the King County EMS levy, and then fees from our contract cities, which again, Barbara, thank you for naming them. Our service area is just under 40 square miles. We serve 169,000 people. But one point I'd like to make is that our ALS, or Advanced Life Support footprint, is quite a bit larger. That's the firefighter paramedics. We serve from all of Mercer Island up to Snoqualmie Pass. We answer about 20,000 fire alarms per year, of which 80% of those are medical in nature, but it hasn't always been that way. The percentage of fire alarms used to be quite a bit larger. And there were three key changes in the last couple of decades that greatly reduced the risk of being injured or dying in a fire. And I always like to ask, who think they can get all three? In the interest of time, since my timer's running, I'll just tell you that the first one is the use of modern consensus codes, building and fire codes, the advent of the inexpensive and reliable smoke alarm. Anybody get the third one? The 911 system, a reputable number that everybody knows, that everybody can use. Okay, next slide, please. So up there on the screen, you're going to see the Bellevue core values, and I'd like to talk for just a minute about one that's germane to today's presentation, which is innovation. My everyday definition of innovation is a new idea, method, or way of doing business that translates into tangible customer value, either internal or external. When I arrived in Bellevue, I wanted to try and breathe some life into the core values, which had perhaps, in my department, become a little stale. I wanted to move the core values from something that existed in a frame on a wall or as part of a document in our annual report and put those into relevance in daily practice. And so we did that by starting a values in action program. We incorporated peer nominations for our core value awards into our annual recognition and award ceremony. And I offered an open invitation to the membership to say to them, folks, you can call me out, or anybody can call anybody out if you see us not living up to these core values. And so we started making these about real decisions. We started linking relevant funding decisions to proposals and asking how well is this proposal aligned with our core values. And it started to work. The membership took hold of this idea and they said, well, Chief, if we can hold you to those and then you can hold us to them, that seems pretty fair. And I said, yeah, let's try that. And so we're in our third year of that. And it's working really well. A theme I'd like to cover today is a little bit about our COVID story. And I would offer to you that innovation and COVID are linked together because COVID forced us to find new ways of doing business. For example, how to economize our personal protective equipment, our PPE, how to decontaminate transport vehicles, ambulances, and medic units quickly so we could turn fast and get on to the next alarm. The COVID-19 pandemic definitely fueled innovation in the fire and EMS community. We certainly did find that innovation, being fueled by necessity, provided some lessons learned for us. And lessons learned, and these are personal lessons learned. The first one is that you have to be willing to try stuff and then fail. And when nobody could find the N95 masks, the protective masks, or if you could find them, they cost 600% more than they did a few months ago. I had a source in Israel and I ordered 6,000 masks. And we managed to figure out the tariff, clearing customs, took delivery of the masks, and guess what? I could only fit test about 19% of my people. So we tried, it didn't work out, but I don't blame us for trying. You have to foster an environment where it's okay to challenge the status quo. When I had firefighters come to me and say, Chief, why haven't you closed the stations to the public yet? We've still got people coming in for blood pressure checks and wanting to do this or that. It's not safe for us. And I bristled a little bit. How dare you check me on my commitment to safety? And after I got over having my feelings get hurt, I thought, you know what, they're exactly right. And I closed the stations the next day. You have to let your people know that to some degree, risk taking is not only okay, it's encouraged. And that's the way we're going to innovate. Next slide, please. Some of the noteworthy achievements I'd like to share with you include accreditation. And accreditation is important to us because it's like the good housekeeping seal of approval for a fire department. You have to take and pass a multi-point evaluation and inspection. And it's also a point of pride for us to be able to tell you, the community members, yes, we did this. Don't take my word that you have a good fire department. Go to the website, see what we had to do to get there. I was at a drill one day and I went up to a firefighter at random and I said, why does accreditation even matter? And he said, Chief, being accredited leads us to the precipice of a good decision on whatever it is we're considering. I thought, that kid's smart, I'm promoting him. But it also serves as a reminder that we are pointed at continual improvement. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on WSRB because I'm sure you folks are familiar with that, but the Washington Survey and Ratings Bureau, there's an inverse relationship between the quality of your fire department and the amount you pay in insurance premiums. And so we were just rated again. We were a 2. We were a 2 before. But the punchline is we're a lot closer to 1. And there are no 1s in the state of Washington yet, but we're working on that. And also in that effort, we were able to improve the ratings of 2 of our contract cities. We're also extremely proud of being 1 of 5 ALS advanced life support providers in King County. This is your Medic 1, folks. In King County, a witnessed cardiac arrest, our survival rate is in excess of 50%. I had a peer from the United Kingdom in my office not long ago. In the United Kingdom, their department does just fire. They're trying to migrate into EMS. And I asked him, what's your survival rate? 12 to 14%. So I think twice before leaving King County. You guys should too. Next slide, please. Regarding fires, we have a blended strategy, okay? 2 goals. We aim to prevent all the fires we can through public education, the use of those codes I was mentioning earlier, and our fire protection systems. And we want to have a fast and professional suppression response for those fires that we can't prevent. Regarding EMS, we provide service at both the basic EMT, emergency medical technician, and advanced paramedic levels. And as I mentioned, we have a fairly large footprint for the firefighter paramedic capability from all of Mercer Island all the way up to Snoqualmie Pass. And that's relevant because our medics will be in businesses and homes here in Bellevue, and they'll also be on 12, 14-hour mountain rescues. One yesterday at the Snow Lake Trail at the Alpental Trailhead. So we have to do a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, our Special Operations Division, here's just a list of things we have to be ready for at a moment's notice. Auto extrication, machinery, high angle rescue, confined space, trench, structural collapse. Think about the event in Florida the other day. Surface water rescue, hazardous materials response, high threat preparedness, wildland firefighter, and now we're getting ready for light rail rescue as well. So the point is, my folks have to wear multiple hats and they have to be ready to demonstrate those skills with very short notice. Regarding training, training is a critical activity for us. In the Bellevue Fire Department, every day is a training day. These skills are perishable and they require frequent refreshers to be able to deliver and comply with the law and demonstrate best practices for all those disciplines that I mentioned. And another really important thing for us is community connections, whether that be an open house, a neighborhood gathering, stopping in at a Friday night football game. Um, this has been tough for us because during COVID, we were shut down on a lot of that. The stations were not open and we were not out getting our touch points in the community. And we're really anxious about the ability to gather and doing that again. The 4th of July, I was able to be one of the two grand marshals of the Somerset Parade, and that was awesome. And I was able to go to Bellevue Downtown Park and just mingle through the crowd on that night, which ended up being another great event. So it's so awesome to be here with you guys today and gather, even if just for 30 minutes. It feels really good to reconnect. Next slide, please. I want to talk for just a minute about changes in fire service delivery. The traditional model of emergency response that most of you are familiar with, fire engine or aid car to the front yard, crews come in, ambulance ride or medic unit to overlay. That model is working less and less of the time as more and more of the time we are encountering elder care issues, mental emotional crises, substance abuse, and homelessness in our community. So mobile integrated healthcare, or MIH, is a slightly different model. It's about getting the right kind of help where it's needed in the community in a timely manner. Our CARES program, our Bellevue Fire Department CARES program, is novel in that we have a team of professional social workers to address these problems. They respond behind the traditional responders in a follow-on capacity, and we partner with up to 12 colleges and universities, and this is a great partnership because we take Masters of Social Work, MSW students who each need 1,000 hours of contact, and we pair them with needy people in our community. So I'd say we get them for free, but it's not exactly free. But it's a great deal, hugely successful model. So not only does it result in the right help being provided to those in need, it reduces the traditional use of the 911 system. It increases the reliability of those base units to be ready for a heart attack, vehicle collision, or structure fire. About remaining relevant in the community. If you or a family member or someone close to you has had a ride in one of my aid cars or medic units, you may know something about us, or if you had a structure fire on your block. But if you haven't, chances are you probably don't know much about us and what we do. As the traditional response model ages, we're going to have to stay in tune with the community and what our community needs. And one thing we know is the money follows the mission. As you guys all know, we are anticipating a significant influx of growth in our community. The large influx of tech workers has been widely reported. We plan to double the square footage in Bellevue in the next 4 years. Think about that. We have 6 60-story buildings in construction right now, and we're welcoming light rail to the east side. I double checked with my friend Mac, who's our planning and community development director, to make sure I got it right. And he said, yeah, Jay, that's 9 million square feet. So we need to keep pace. We need to manage the rapid transformation of our city. And the bottom line, we need to be there when our community needs us. And the community stepped up last year in a big way. I was expressing some anxiety about our ability to respond to a scene of violence. You know, we've all read about the school issues and some of the gun incidents that we've had, and I needed ballistic helmets and bulletproof vests for my EMTs and paramedics so that we could go in and support law enforcement to save every savable life in the warm zone. And I was out of budget season. I needed help, and I actually turned to Laura McLeod Mathers, who has helped me with the newly formed Bellevue Fire Foundation. And in less than a week, she had reached out to some community members who met the need, and it was a significant need. And I'm not going to call people out by name, but a couple of the donors are in the room today. Um, and in very short order, we had ordered the equipment, we had it, and it's been used several times in our community to make sure that our EMS workers were ready to go to support law enforcement. One day at the height of COVID, John Howie Steak called me and said, "Hey, we'd like to buy some steak dinners for firefighters that have been working so hard on this." I said, "Hey, thank you. That's awesome. How many?" And they said, "All of them." So on a Sunday night in the middle of the winter, in the worst part of COVID, we figured out the mail run, and every single on-duty firefighter and medic from Mercer Island to Snoqualmie Pass got a John Howie steak dinner and a nice thing. I didn't get one, of course. I was selfless, but yes, I don't know if they're here today, but thank you, John Howie. And the community also stepped up in a big way. We literally had pallet loads of things that community members were donating: medical masks, gloves, little bars of soap, shampoos. Honestly, we weren't able to use all of it, but we redistributed it all so that it was used. And it was so gratifying to see the response of the community and how they stepped up. Before I leave that slide, I just want to mention too, there are a couple of Bellevue Fire Foundation members here today. Barbara is here if you'd raise your hand. John is here. Mike Sotelo is here. Thank you guys for everything you've done so far. We feel the support, very much appreciated. And yes, thank you guys. Thank you. Okay, my red ticker's going here, so I got to get moving. On this next slide, I want to mention real briefly about some of the innovations that happened that you guys might find interesting. As I mentioned, we were pretty concerned about running out of the N95 masks. And let me just tell you, one of the things I'm so proud of is that there were a lot of unplanned, no bill attached midnight trips across Puget Sound from fire department to fire department to make sure that nobody actually ran out. We gave, we got. I remember a late night ferry trip over somewhere near Belfair. But the fire chiefs network, and this really is what the brotherhood and the sisterhood about the fire service is. But a lot of gear changed hands to make sure that everybody made it through, even if they were really, really thin. And so we were also looking for ways to extend the life. We partnered with the University of Washington to make this microwave looking UV light box, ultraviolet light. We could take our used N95 masks, put them in there, turn it on for a few minutes, and reuse those things up to 7 times by partnering with smart people at the U that helped us tackle that problem. Our prevention division was able to relax some inspection criteria. For example, a place like this probably has a hood vent. If the restaurant's shuttered, we don't need to see that hood vent, every month or every 6 months like we used to. So we were able to relax some of the inspection criteria. Some people said, "We'd like an inspection, but we're not letting you in." So we were able to do the inspections via FaceTime with the phone. Show me this, show me that. Let's get through it. A firefighter came up with a scout recon policy. So if we responded to your home, instead of 5 or 7 folks putting on the full ensemble of gear, we'd put one person in the gear and go in and see what's really going on here. And then if we needed to suit other people up, we did. We had step-off mats in the station where we would step on a spongy foam thing with a disinfectant solution so we could try to keep the contaminants in the garage and out of the clean part of the station. Our facilities team at the city of Bellevue adjusted our air handling and our air scrubbers. Our human resources team helped us adjust our rules for quarantine and isolation. Just amazing teamwork. Next slide, please. I'm going to hit this one really quick and just tell you a little bit about the timeline. I was at an accreditation conference in Orlando. I want to say that was in late February. I got a call from my deputy chief that I had left at home, And he said, Chief, the Life Care Center of Kirkland is going off. There's a whole lot of sick people there. Up to a third of the Kirkland Fire Department may have been exposed and needs immediate quarantine. Some of them need isolation. I said, I guess I'm coming home. I'll get on the next flight. And, Mac was with me. We were having these meetings at leadership thinking, well, what are we going to do if they close the schools? And we all would look at our phone. They just closed the schools. What if our peer cities close City Hall? Same thing, right? So we were in this reactive mode, and we really pushed ahead to get into a proactive mode. But it was definitely on from that point. Next slide, please. I just want to mention that there was just so much faith. We spent a whole lot of money we had to buy equipment, decontamination stuff, all sorts of things. We had to figure out how to seal off the back compartment of the transport vehicle from the front, with no promise of repayment, just faith. And in the end, somehow it worked. But I want to relate a quick story. I went to City Manager Brad Miyake and said, Brad, we've got to spend some money and do some things here that I'm not budgeted for. I just can't tell you how this is going to go. And he looked at me and he said, Chief, do what you need to do to keep the community safe. We'll sort it out later. And it was so uplifting to feel that kind of teamwork in this community. I'll never forget that. And it's a huge trust building event. Next slide, please. As an administrator, so it's been a long time for me since I've been on the business end of the hose or the ladder, right? So I'm an administrator. I spend most of my days with other directors and union officials and attorneys, and honestly, it's not all that fun. It used to be a lot more fun, but it's important. And so, as an administrator, I want to give you a list of the things that we had to rebuild on the fly: high efficiency resuscitation procedures, updating our dispatcher protocols, learning how to decontaminate people, places, and vehicles quickly, much more quickly than we had in the past, adapting our return to work guidelines, patient handoff procedures at hospitals and how to avoid wall time, post-mortem swabbing, post-mortem testing and sampling, medical surveillance, and contact tracing. The point is, all these procedures had to be designed, developed, and implemented on the fly. The city leadership and all departments really came together to make this happen. I had HR and legal on speed dial for months. How do we get this deal inked? How do we get it, how do we get agreement with labor? How do we get the contract in force? And just the teamwork was really remarkable. And I'm so thankful to be part of the team in Bellevue. Next slide, please. This slide is going to show just how life changed in fire stations. And I just want to share with you that it did change a lot. We are team people by nature, and we prepare meals together. We live a third of our lives together. So it's really our work family. And it became different than that. We had to do meal prep and eating solo. We had to be disinfecting everything all the time. We had to occupy different portions of the station. And we got really good at cleaning stuff. And we still are. We spent a lot more time doing it. So life in the fire stations changed, and we're very anxious to get it back to where it was before, because camaraderie is a big part of the job. It's a big part of what makes it successful. Okay, next slide, please. I just want to talk for a minute about mobile vaccination teams. We started with adult family homes. We migrated to homebound seniors, homeless shelters, and then we started doing pop-up clinics. And the point here, I'll just get right to the point. We vaccinated 2,383 people with over 3,400 individual shots. But the takeaway is that when I was able to meet with seniors who had missed anniversaries, birthdays, sometimes the arrival of grandchildren, and they would tear up and tell me that this shot was paving the way for a reunion that was so special to them. And that's why I have on this slide that we were literally injecting hope into people. And we as firefighters and paramedics were so fortunate to be able to serve in this way. Next slide, please. This is my last slide, and I just want to show this real briefly to mention that we've talked about the accreditation, WSRB. I guess the one I would really like to point out on this slide is the last one, that our CARES team had an increase in 25% of calls for service for people that were living on the margins, outside in vehicles, providing them with food. And they were able to step up and meet that need. And I'm so very proud of them for that. But thank you so much for the time to speak today. I really appreciate it.